We came to Philadelphia for work, not because the city was generous, not because the path was promised, but because earning a living was one of the few ways to claim dignity in a country that had never fully offered it. In the early 20th century, Black Americans moved north in extraordinary numbers, leaving the South in what was called the Great Migration. It was one of the largest movements of people in the nation's history, and it was driven by labor. People left behind sharecropping systems designed to trap families in debt. They fled racial terror that punished independence. They carried skills, ambition, and memory. Philadelphia became a destination, an industry city with shipyards, railroads, factories, and hospitals, and kitchens and homes that needed labor. Work was the promise, but arrival did not mean access. In Philadelphia, jobs existed, but opportunity was carefully controlled. Black workers were often hired into the most physically demanding roles for the lowest wages. Many labor unions excluded Black workers entirely or restricted them to segregated locals. Advancement was limited, job security was fragile. We built steel, loaded ships, cleaned homes, cooked meals, repaired rail lines, staffed hospitals, and sustained the city's daily life. And we learned quickly that labor alone did not guarantee protection. When industries declined, Black workers were the first laid off. When wages were stagnated, Black families absorbed the loss. When opportunity narrowed, survival required intervention. This was not failure, it was adaptation. Out of constrained work and limited access, culture formed. Not culture as performance, culture as structure. When stable employment could not be guaranteed, Black communities built institutions that carried dignity when the labor market would not. The Black press became essential. Newspapers like the Philadelphia Tribune, founded in 1884, did more than report news. They circulated information, where to find work, who was hiring, how to navigate a city that did not explain itself to newcomers. Information became a form of power. When access to capital was restricted, Black-owned businesses multiplied. Barbershops, beauty salons, restaurants, tailoring shops, catering businesses, repair services. These were not side hustles, they were community anchors. A barbershop was not just a place of grooming, it was a civic space. A beauty salon was not just a business, it was a network. A restaurant was not just food, it was employment, gathering, conversation, and care. This is how Black commercial corridors emerge in Philadelphia. Cecil B. Moore Avenue, once Columbia Avenue, became known as the Golden Strip, a thriving center of Black-owned businesses and jazz clubs. South Street became a corridor where Black entrepreneurs built entertainment venues and gathering spaces. West Philadelphia, 52nd Street grew into a commercial and cultural spine, sustained by Black spending power and Black labor. This is the culture outcome of limited work. We learn to employ each other. Labor shaped not only how we worked, but how we sounded. As Black migrants concentrated into neighborhoods, they brought Southern music traditions into a city ready for something new. Philadelphia became a major center for jazz and live performances in the mid-20th century. Work sustained the city by day, music sustained the city by night. In 1914, Black entrepreneur John T. Gibson purchased the Standard Theater on South Street, creating one of the city's most important Black-owned performance spaces at the very moment thousands of migrants were arriving. This is the Great Migration in practice. People arriving for wages and building stages. Culture did not replace labor, it grew alongside it. Work also produced resistance because dignity is not only about earning, it is about conditions, safety, and respect. On Philadelphia's waterfront in the early 20th century, Black longshoremen helped lead interracial labor organizing that challenged exclusion and exploitation. One of those leaders was Ben Fletcher, a Black labor organizer whose work insisted that fairness on the job was a civil right. That legacy is now publicly remembered. Workforce development was not an afterthought. It was a civil rights response. For more than a century, the Urban League of Greater Philadelphia has worked to expand access to employment, advocate for fair opportunity, and support families whose stability has always been tied to the right to earn. The work continues because the struggle did not end when factories closed or industries changed. So what culture was born from constrained labor and limited access? A culture of institution building, a culture of shared economy, a culture that understood work not only as survival, but as contribution. Philadelphia was not simply a place we came to work. It was a city reshaped by our labor. And we are still living inside what our people built, sometimes without being told who built it. This is why the story matters. Because when a people are needed for their labor but denied full access to power, culture becomes the evidence of presence. And in Philadelphia, the evidence is everywhere. In business corridors, in music and memory, in murals and institutions, and in the ongoing work of the Urban League of Greater Philadelphia. We came here to earn. And when the city limited what we could receive, we built what we needed to endure.